Perfect. So I want to talk about two things. This came from a guy who's a mentor, but I want to review it really quick. His name is Dan Sullivan. He talks about this thing called the gap and the gain. Anybody know what that is? There's a book about it. A different one. This is called the gap and the gain, right? So there's this thing called the gap and the gain. If you had to guess, what do you think it is? Everything we do in this business is like this, right? And the problem with people who are producers and entrepreneurs is that we're always focused on what?
More business.
What we're doing more, right? And so as an entrepreneur, we're always focusing on what we call the gap. The gap is where I have to close. And so the problem with most entrepreneurs and most business people and salespeople is you're constantly hunting down what? The next gap. Where do I need to go? Where do I need to close, right? And so that's the thing that's important. And so the problem with that is the way that Dan Sullivan breaks this down is that he breaks it down into a comparison of you're out in the ocean, right? I'm out in the ocean in a boat. I'm rowing a boat. I row as far as I can, go very, very far. And all of a sudden, I've been rowing for 6 hours. I can't see shore. I've come a long way, but what do I look back and see?
More ocean.
Just more ocean, more horizon. So I do 6 more hours, get way out, actually do 2 miles. But if I look and I just look forward, what do I see? More ocean. So what happens mentally is a total mind for most people is because they're constantly focused on the gain. And what happens is that's where burnout comes from. Sorry, they're focused on the gap is where the burnout comes from. It's not until you go back and look at the gain that you're able to figure out, okay, here's how far I've come and here's what I've done. And so if you look at how the business works in real estate is you always have this constant, what we call peak. Come on, vibrate, please. And then we also have what we call a pit, right? And so we're constantly in this place of real estate of what we call peaks and pits. You get me on this? So we start pushing for a goal. Obviously, you have to go down to the pits to get better, right? Because the person that you were, how you operated, cannot really accomplish this goal here. You have to go in the deep, dark pit to do work you haven't really been doing before, studying things you haven't studied before, going learning more, Grant Cardone, whoever it is. And so you kind of go from this place of what we call pit to peak, right, which is going up here. And so if you come up this year, there's two ways to look at this. And it's easy to kind of draw this. You're constantly always looking here. This is what we call the gap. The gap is always really analysis or the psychology of where do I have to climb, what do I have to do. And if I'm constantly looking at every single year, here's 2026, now I got to push more. I just pushed all 2025. It's one of the most difficult marketplaces in the history of real estate. And if I'm constantly just focusing on where I got to go, what happens to me mentally? Burnout. And so the value of what he talks about is you have to take time to pause and go back, and you have to take time to look at the overall, what they call is the gain. And so part of being successful in real estate or business or anything is taking that time to pause and go back and be grateful for how far you come in terms of that gain. And so many of you have changed the entire ways you look, the way you feel, your business, your skill set in a short period of time of being here, but you put a lot of work into it, right? A lot of times it feels like grind, feels very difficult. But if you don't take time to pause and look back, and man, I was here not long ago, but now I'm in this place here in terms of certainty, in terms of power, in terms of the way I communicate, my sales IQ, my ability to talk to people, my ability to talk on the phone, me as a leader, how I guide other people, right, makes a big difference. And so I want you guys to take some time this morning as we're looking at the end of 2025 and saying, look, what was my gain this year? And I want you to take time right now and write down 3 things that you're grateful for you in the last 12 months that you've done. So looking back between January 1, 2025 to obviously December 30th, 2025, like what are 3 things that you're grateful for you in terms of your gain? I'd find something personal and something business for sure. Part of this comes down to looking back, what did I grow personally? How did I do? What am I grateful for that I've done, that I've come on, when I look back and say, okay, what's my gain been personally? And this is important. It's not necessarily financially, this is who I am as this person that's going, because why is that? There's always, no matter what you do in real estate or any type of business, there's always going to be what? Pits and peaks. The only problem is the further I go, the higher the peaks are and the deeper the pits go. The blessing within that, though, is that I have more capacity in terms of who I am and how I operate, which allows me to have the power to navigate those pits quickly. And so now I don't have to go as deep in the pit before I realize I can come back this way. I course correct earlier, I learn the skill set quicker, I study harder, whatever it is, to figure out this gap so I can minimize these to get here faster. Does that make sense? And the more I do this, the better I get at managing the gap, which is, and I'll try to show you a different color so you guys can see it, which is very important. There's a great book about it by Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. If you want to kind of feel that, if you struggle with burnout at all, it's all psychology, and it all comes down to the stories we tell ourselves, ideally. Right? And it just talks about you have to get to a way that you look at things. I was reading something recently this week that talks about there's 3 different sculptors, right? One person they were sculpting things to make money, and they felt like it was a job, right? Another person felt like that their sculpting was a punishment. The third person that was sculpting, and this was obviously a long time ago, felt like it was their art and their way to create art. Which one do you think was more successful, made the most money? The last one, right? And it all came to the same exact job, 3 separate people. The difference was how they looked at that and their perception and story about how they do what they do. Not only were they more happy and more fulfilled in that process, they were more successful exponentially because of their commitment to their art and who they are, and obviously developing that part. Does that make sense to you guys? Which I think is super important. And so I'd write 3 things that you're grateful for you in terms of your growth here, and just 3 lessons that you're grateful for that you've been through in 2025. I did this, and it's helpful, right? For me, it's been one of the most difficult years in a long time in terms of business, and I've had more growth than I've had in a very, very long time, right? And so you have to kind of be grateful for that and look back and extract those lessons, extract the positive from it, because I want to use that as momentum into what? 2026, and specifically the next peak where I want to go. Make sense? Same thing with macros, dude. I overcomplicated fitness for 15 years. Worked my ass off at ISI like crazy 6 days a week and got no results. Why? My macros. And the business has macros the same exact way. You can do all the work, but if you don't have the right macros in place and you're doing the wrong macros, with me, he slowed me down. He said, hey, you're going too fast, doing too much in terms of exertion. And so my cortisol level was super high, which obviously hurt my ability for my body to burn fat and do all these other things, right? In addition to that, my food was just, I was eating too much. It's super simple math. Take your body weight times 10. If you want to lose weight, you do less than that. Simple. The reason is, but the problem is you don't track it. And so we talked about earlier, one thing that helped, that just the simplest app I found is Cal AI. It's like $30 a year. It's worth the investment in yourself. You take a picture, it tells you exactly what your macros are. Super simple. It's crazy. It's one that was invented by like a kid who was like 20 years old, and now he's worth like 10 billion or something crazy. So that's important. So that's a great lesson. But same thing, once you saw the macros in your world, it allowed you to what? Have a lot more appreciation and understanding. Here's how I move the needle too, and here's how I get better and optimize.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ultimately, it's the byproduct, right?
Yeah.
Of those things, of service, of growth. And so I'm glad it's a powerful share, Joe. And it's important. If I'm having trouble finding it, then I need to find a way more to find more gratitude in that, right? And here's the other thing. There's obviously cool things that we want to change or operate. Looking back, what can I change in terms of that? But here's one thing that if you're not really kind of where you want, or in terms of business, within your business, here's a question may get you. What must be surrendered inside you that you have to let go of for 2026 to be where you want to be? What's one thing inside you that you need to surrender and let go of so you can be where you want to be in 2026? For me, 2 things I wrote down when I did it was, number 1, the need to be liked by people. All right? The best leader is not liked. They're more respected. And number 2, just fear of, or just avoidance of recruiting. Right? The stickiness and feeling around it, that's what obviously solves a lot of it. And so that's just something that was really kind of a great lesson for me. But for some of us, it could be dials. It could be my scheduling, my consistency. Like there's something there that's limiting that we all kind of tend to know what that is. Right? And it could be something internal. Like Mike had a great conversation with me yesterday about stuff that, he realized it's potentially holding him back that makes a big difference. And so that's something I think is powerful for us to look at as well. Anybody, any feedback or anything else? What you got? The most powerful thing any of us can do is the personal work, period. And so if you could double down on anything, right, in 2026, it's going to be a personal work, period. Same thing, right? All you do to our body, right? Part of my body, if I execute my body at the highest level, I'm weaponized, I'm in the best shape I've been in my last 20 years, I feel internally that I deserve these things. I deserve the success. I'm making sacrifices other people aren't. I have discipline other people aren't. I can discipline I put in my mouth and my body, other people can't. Like it just makes, that's the hardest discipline of anybody. Go to Walmart, right? You see it. And so the reality is that helps you understand that bleeds into the other part. But all this comes down to what? The personal work, which is powerful. So that's a great share in that. But just take that. I wanted to kind of anchor that in, obviously, being the last meeting of the year.